My dad was brutal when it came to weight. It was before like my levers kind of bore, and I said to my dad, I don't think that you think that I'm beautiful.
In a way, we can see the seed of the pattern we've been talking about around who do you need to be to get love and to get safety from other people.
Yeah. My sister had a boyfriend before her now husband. He was in his early 20s. I was probably 13. He sent me some messages.
What you're describing is not only inappropriate, it's also illegal.
Things like that, I think, just fed into the feeling of like, I'm not worth protecting.
The problem was never with you. The problem was with the environment. I'm Alex Howard, a therapist with over 20 years of experience working with clients. Welcome to In Therapy, where each season we follow one person on their therapeutic journey with me. Each episode dives into a different theme, with explanations to help bring the lessons to life. My hope is that by watching, you'll gain tools and insights to transform your own life. This season, we're addressing common struggles, things like negative self-talk, body dysmorphia, low self-worth, and the weight of feeling unlovable or broken, as well as navigating childhood and relationship trauma. In this week's episode, we pick up halfway through Belle's third session, where I ask her if her core emotional needs were met during childhood. What we uncover is a consistent lack of emotional support throughout her life, shedding light on why she's so hard on herself today. Ultimately, this episode is about self-love and how even if our emotional needs weren't met as children, we can learn to meet them for ourselves as adults. New episodes of In Therapy are released weekly, so don't forget to subscribe to stay updated. When you look back on being a little girl, remember what I said, I think it was last time, this is not, your parents are not on trial here.
Yeah.
We know that your mum and dad loved you
Yeah.
and love you, right? So this is not about naming, blaming, shaming. That's not the position we're taking here. No. You can really love someone and just not know how to meet those core needs.
Yeah.
But when you look back on being a little girl, what do you see about that place, particularly at the heart of this core need, is the sense of being loved for exactly who we are as we are, as opposed to love for what we do, what we achieve, who we become, but being completely allowed to be where we are. And that means being allowed to have our feelings, just freely have our feelings, being allowed to celebrate and own just who we are in that moment. And I'm interested as you think back on childhood and how much you did and didn't get of that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember very much at all of being a child. I don't really remember very much before I was maybe 14. But I know that I had a lot of spirit as a child, and that I was very kind of dance the beat of my own drum, and I would always dress myself in crazy outfits. I was very expressive and super, super confident in who I was, and had a really strong sense of self. I didn't really care what anybody else thought. I think that when I had difficult feelings, I don't know if I was made to feel completely safe expressing them. I think there were times where it felt like I was being difficult, for feeling anxious or down or just struggling. There are times I can remember where I was struggling, and it was, like I was being difficult and I was kind of ruining things. Yeah, I think the kind of self-love element was quite affected by my weight a lot of the time as well. I think, my dad was always quite brutal when it came to weight. So I definitely knew that I had more kind of approval from him when I was thinner. And it like noticeably went the other way if I gained weight.
So you learned that you being loved was dependent upon how you looked and how you behaved.
Yeah, how I looked, how I behaved, basically making things easy for everybody.
Yeah, like in a way we can see the seed of the pattern we've been talking about around who do you need to be to get love and to get safety from other people.
Yeah.
Right. And we can see how you learnt that around you got love and you felt safe when you figured out who you needed to be for others. But then that's like a fundamental rejection of yourself, which is the origin of this idea that there's something wrong with me, that I'm not loved, I'm not worthy of love, I'm not deserving of love, because what you were taught was you're not enough the way you are, you need to become something else.
Yeah.
If you'd like to learn more about how to explore the themes in this episode in your own life, do check out my most recent book, It's Not Your Fault: Why Childhood Trauma Shapes You and How to Break Free. In that book, I give you a framework to understand the impacts of childhood trauma on your life now, but also a practical roadmap to support your healing.
I look back at times I was really kind of scrambling for reassurance or for that kind of all-encompassing sense of being okay as I was. I remember quite vividly before, I think I was 18, it was before like my leavers kind of ball, and I said to my dad, I was quite emotional, and I said to my dad, I don't think that you think that I'm beautiful, and I feel like every girl like wants that from their dad. That's just kind of I don't know, maybe we've just been made to feel like that's that's how things should be. But I definitely felt like I should be feeling really beautiful and really kind of amazing, and I wasn't getting that from him at all. And so when I then addressed it, it was again that kind of, oh, you're just tired, it's just dismissive.
You were gaslit.
Yeah,
it's like that's not a thing. You're making it up. It's not a real thing.
Yeah, don't be ridiculous.
But you could feel there's a place in you that was wanting something that you weren't getting.
Yeah, and I think I felt very vulnerable saying.
Sure, it's a brave thing to do.
Yeah, so I think, that was an instance where I felt like, okay, there's just something not good about me. And I think other times, my sister had a boyfriend before her now husband. I think she was 18 and he was in his early 20s. And it was the first relationship that she had had. I was probably 13. Yeah, I would have been 13. So it was my first experience of like how, what it was like having her have a boyfriend. So I didn't really know what was appropriate. And I think he could recognise that and was slightly inappropriate with me. And eventually, you know, that when they split up, he sent me some messages kind of, yeah, like, you're hot and this sort of thing. And I was like, yeah, 13, 14. And my immediate reaction was not to say anything, like not to make him feel uncomfortable, like just not to question it, not to have a go at him. You know, all my friends were like, oh, well, just, you know, tell him to go away. And I remember being like, well, I can't do that. I'd never been taught about setting boundaries, what was right, what was wrong. And it was my friends who said, well, you need to tell, you know, your family, which I was so nervous about telling them because, you know, everyone around me, friends, had made it known that that was really wrong.
Yeah.
You know, what he was doing was wrong.
Yeah.
I hadn't really identified that. They had. So I was really nervous about telling my family, and then I kind of like built it up and told them, and yeah, no one really did anything. And that's a real standout memory for me.
Yeah. How do you feel about that right now? Would you tell me about it?
Yeah, I don't. I think that situation is quite a big part of why I value being protected quite a lot. Because I think that, you know, that really stands out as a time where I look back on that and think that I needed somebody to protect me. I needed somebody to say that was wrong, you know.
Yeah,
not that I needed somebody to go and like have a go at him, but somebody to say to me that was wrong.
Yeah.
And you have nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
You know, that's wrong. And if that happens again, this is what you do. This is how you set a boundary. This is...
Well, how our parents and our caregivers respond in situations like that tell us something about how we're valued or not valued. It also tells us something about what it models for us, like healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
So a situation like that is not just about the situation, it's also about what we're taught about how the situation is responded to. And what you're describing is not only inappropriate, it's also illegal. Right? Like a man in his 20s making advances on a girl who's 13 years old. So it's not only inappropriate that he's broken up with your sister and he's now going after the sister, which is kind of just is a bit like you, but he's a grown man and you're a child. And so it's illegal. And a part of you know, it's why your friends were clearly like, this is completely not okay.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, well, maybe it's not. Right, yeah. And so you're sort of building up. And then the response you're getting is, oh, well, let's just not make a scene. Let's not make a thing about it.
Yeah. Things like that, I think, just fed into the feeling of like, I'm not like worth protecting.
The problem was never with you. The problem was with the environment. As children, we rely on our caregivers to help us understand right from wrong and to provide a sense of safety and love through their words and actions. These early experiences deeply shape our worldview, influence how we connect with others, and affect our ability to handle life's challenges. When these needs aren't fully met, it can leave unresolved emotional wounds that show up as anxiety, feelings of inadequacy, or a sense of being broken. This can also trigger emotional shutdowns, causing us to retreat into our minds and disconnect from our hearts. In the next part of the session, I invite Belle to explore how she truly feels by getting her to connect to her heart. What do you feel in your body?
I feel really small. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
But I feel very insignificant is how I would describe it. And just quite, I don't have a lot of fight when I feel that. I think it makes me feel quite weak.
The feeling of feeling small and insignificant, whereabouts in your body do you feel that feeling?
In here.
It
feels like kind of shrinking.
Yeah, so it's like a shrinking feeling. What else can you say about it?
Makes me want to hunch over. Makes me want to kind of it makes me want to sort of protect myself.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah. How is it just to let yourself feel some of that way? Just to honor there's a part of you that feels small, that feels like it needs protecting, and just to let that feeling be there.
It feels like I'm kind of honouring that. Honouring how me at 13, how she was feeling.
Yeah. What does the honouring feel like? To really acknowledge how she felt and how she feels. And you're honouring her. What does that feel like?
It feels soothing. And a kind of settling.
Yeah. Yeah, what does the settling feel like? What's the quality of that?
It makes the shrinking feeling kind of expand a bit. Yeah, it softens it, I think.
Yeah. Can you describe the expansion? What that feels like?
It feels more like opening. It feels like there's more space. There's more space.
Yeah, good. What does the space feel like? What's the felt quality of the space?
Oh, this is really hard.
I know you're doing really well.
It feels like light. It feels like it opens up a little crack of light to come through that's been painted over.
Yeah. So what happens if you let the light come through and you give more space to it?
Yeah, it feels like a kind of it feels like a kind of a balm on that situation. It feels like I can, that the space is that's not something to be afraid of anymore. I don't have to be afraid of that situation anymore because it's gone now. And I can, the space can kind of, I can acknowledge it, it can be there and it's safe for it to be there.
How does safety feel? When it feels safe for it to be there, what's the felt quality of that safety?
I think it feels a bit more settled in my chest, in my tummy. I think it just feels a bit calmer than before. I think I'm so used to always having some kind of sensation of anxiety somewhere. It's either in my chest or it's in my head or it's in my tummy. Pretty much 24/7. There's always some sort of feeling. So it's not gone, but it definitely feels like it's calmer.
Yeah. What we've just been exploring is really self-love in action. Because what you're doing is you're letting yourself feel the way that you feel. Often the story we have is if I feel the feeling, I will become swallowed by the feeling, or it'll be like, the void will be like a bottomless pit, and so I'm going to do everything I can to get away. Much of the anxiety that you're experiencing is your system trying to avoid how you feel. And so it's like going into your head, or going into the future, or going into the past, or going into anxiety or catastrophizing. There's a way to disconnect from what you feel and to go into that avoidance, because that is how you were related to in childhood. That your feelings weren't given the space and the holding that they needed, because there was an avoidance strategy that, in a way, everyone was probably using. So you've just modeled, like you've learned, this is what we do when we feel feelings. That's what you do. And what you've noticed is when you actually give more space to how you feel, like you inquire into it, you're curious about it, you give it space, that what you need arises. Because that place in you needs love. It needs to feel safe. It needs to have healthy boundaries to protect it. As a 13-year-old girl, you were somewhat dependent upon others to give you those things, and they didn't. The blessing, the deep, deep blessing of being an adult is we can learn how to give to ourselves what it is that we need. How does it feel to think about, thinking into the next week, for example, and letting yourself be closer to how you feel emotionally? Like how we were working together, of just acknowledging how you feel, like giving more space to how you feel. When you think about doing that, does that feel terrifying, exciting, possible, impossible? Like what's your sense of that?
It's exciting because I know that's what I need, and I know that that's part of getting to where I want to be. But I do find it really hard. Like, that was really helpful. I did find it really hard.
Yeah,
I just find it difficult to
It's really
feel physically.
Yeah, I get it.
Really difficult.
What feels so difficult? I understand that it does feel difficult, but I'm curious as to what makes it feel difficult for you.
I just don't find it easy at all to feel physically, in my body. I'm so in my head. I've been living up here for so long that I don't find it easy to not only just to drop down into the physical feelings, but to separate them. Like, how you were saying, how does the space feel? And then how does this feel? How does this feel? It's like distinguishing between
Got it.
What's that feeling like? What's that feeling like? What's that feeling like? Is like another level of difficulty, because I've got to really go there physically.
Yeah, what you're describing is two really common things. One, it's unfamiliar, right? It's like going to a new place you've not been before. You don't know what's going on and what the kind of norms are and what the kind of whatever. And you're learning a new language, really, and the language of your heart and the language of your feelings. But the really key piece here is somebody else can never meet the needs of your heart in the way that you can. Because someone else doesn't really know what's going on and what you feel. Whereas you can go, this is what I feel right now. And this is what I need right now. Yeah. And the more that you can truly learn your heart and understand your heart, you can then protect your heart. You can put the boundaries in place because you can feel a violation when it comes, and we can talk in time about how you put those boundaries in place. But also you can really choose who you open your heart to and how much, and what's healthy, what's unhealthy.
Yeah.
It's a actual learning of a language, and it's learning of a way of being in relationship with yourself. And our hearts are really delicate.
Yeah.
And they're precious. And we shouldn't trust everyone with them.
No, definitely not. But it does feel like I can be a bit all or nothing in that way.
Right.
Yeah.
And the more that you learn your heart and how to take care of it, the more you can, as we touched on again last time, learn who the right person is to be close to your heart. And as I mentioned last time, you may well find in time, even the type of person you're attracted to starts to shift and starts to change. And the way that you're being in relationship also starts to shift and change.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully. Because it's the pattern is not good.
Yeah, well, the pattern is a symptom of the current state of affairs.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? And things are changing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I also want to acknowledge your courage and willingness to start to go there. Right? Because tracking back a little bit, when I started to ask you, you could have deflected me and I wouldn't have pushed beyond a certain point, but you were also willing to trust me, and you were willing to open up to start to explore what's there. So I also want you to acknowledge your courage in that. How does that land?
Yeah, it's not something that I had thought. Like, my brain didn't go there. My brain didn't go, oh, that was really brave. That doesn't come easily. So,
but as I speak to it now, can you let that land a little bit?
Yeah, I can let that land. I can let it land from other people. So,
how about from you in this moment? To reflect and to think, I went to a place that's unfamiliar, that I spend a lot of energy avoiding, and I was willing to go there, and it felt difficult and scary, but I did it anyway.
Yeah, it does feel brave.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do feel proud of myself for doing that.
Yeah, what does the brave and what does proud, what does that feel like? I'm not going to push you any further, but I just want to let that land. Like what does brave and proud feel like?
It feels like, again, a kind of expansion. Yeah, it feels like I'm less like wanting to cave in. It's more like, okay, that was good. Like I did. It feels like, oh, that's something that I can be proud of today.
Yeah.
Yeah, exciting.
Good, and keep going. You're doing the work. So give yourself credit for that.
Thank you.
It's not easy work to do.
Thank you. I'll try.
Yeah. Good. All right. I will see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week. Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Belle.
It was quite emotional going over a couple of memories that I haven't really thought about in a little while. But it was really powerful doing the practice with Alex of going into my body and kind of feeling how my emotions sit physically. Because that's something that I find quite hard to do on my own. But unfortunately, a bit of a storm hit my head last night. Just a couple of things sort of set me off, made the kind of loneliness that I've been talking about in the therapy sessions a bit more obvious. So that was really tough. I'm still kind of feeling it. Well, I'm very much still feeling it today. So just trying to ride out the storm, trying to use my meditation techniques and the stop method and the things that I've been working on with Alex. Did some journaling, so we've got another sort of tear-stained entry to go over next week. But that helped. It kind of just got the thoughts out of my head, which is good. But yeah, so it's tough. But yeah, looking forward to next week, I think, more than ever.
Therapy is hard. It's not a straight line. And often in the short term, the more we let ourselves feel, the more challenging the journey can feel. And the very act of showing up and staying with the journey is its own act of self-love. It's like a declaration to ourselves that we matter, that we're worth it. And as Belle goes deeper into her healing, the more present she is with herself, the more that she is self-healing. She's giving herself what she needs. So I'm curious for you. Are you showing up for yourself? And if not, how would truly committing to your healing journey transform your life? What are the stories about what would happen if you let yourself feel more?
If I let myself feel, then I will fall apart.
The vast majority of the suffering that we have in life is not the feelings. It's all the things that we do to not feel the feelings. There are two words which have like a sacred power when it comes to your inner critic. When we really see the inner critic for what it is, its power does start to fall away. You're just not worthy.